I recently had a conversation with a friend who didn't like a series I liked, DanMachi. Of course, this is unacceptable. We had an intense argument, and still, by the end, he refused to see the light. To this end, I created this video to prove to him why his taste is bad, and is it wrong to pick up Girls in a Dungeon is the greatest light novel series and anime of all time. The biggest draw is obviously for the plot. Both the anime and light novels have such great plot. Yeah, look at all that plot. More seriously though, I do love DanMachi, and with the recent second season of anime finished and a third season confirmed, I thought I'd try to explain why it's better than some of its most obvious features might suggest. So, why is DanMachi great? Oh, and by the way, this video will contain spoilers for the first 2 seasons of DanMachi or the first 8 volumes of the light novel. Well, at first glance, DanMachi might appear pretty similar to a standard action shonen series. It has your training arcs, your standard "for my family" /nakama /friends speeches, the whole overpowered protag thing, and it isn't shy about stealing fantasy tropes either, especially the "rescue the princess" one, hence the title of the whole series. That being said, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Common storytelling tropes become common because they work, and what sets DanMachi apart is how it uses these tropes, either with stellar execution, as is the case for the Nakama thing, or an interesting twist, as it does with the princess saving. Also, DanMachi's adaptation of various mythologies and its world building are full-on brilliant, so that elevates its level even further. Let's start with the whole "for my family" /friends thing. This is probably the most common speech we see in a shonen series to justify a character gaining plot armor or a power-up, and that makes the whole thing feel kinda hollow. DanMachi takes it in an entirely different direction though. The series' subtitle, Familia Myth, is a really large portion of what it's about. Hestia creating a familia and providing a place of belonging for a variety of misfits, from an orphan to a thief to a sex trafficking victim. Each character has their own troubles in their background, but within Hestia Familia, they have a support system to deal with those troubles, and everything else in life too. This series devotes a lot of time to showing how characters came into the familia and showing why it's important to them. Hell, for some of the characters, there are story arcs devoted just to that process. Even though none of them are related by blood, Hestia Familia still feels like a proper family, so the "for my family" thing feels really heartfelt. It's also not simple. There are several times where the characters of Hestia Familia have to weigh their moral convictions against their well-being and the safety of their familia. It's not simply a "I'll fight for you, watch your back," or "I'll come save you." It's a "we'll look out for each other, give each other advice, change ourselves, and forgo our own interests for each other." One of the reasons I love DanMachi so much is because of this touching sense of family it portrays. Now let's completely switch gears and talk about the whole princess saving thing. This trope typically gets a lot of hate because of the idea that it robs female characters of their agency. A totally fair point. I've always found the concept kind of romantic though, and I quite like DanMachi's several uses of it. The first case is obviously Ais Wallenstein's rescue of Belle. This scene is great, because other than the obvious gender swap, well, this does give Belle an "oh, my hero, so cool, I am instantly in love." His reaction following that is "I need to work my hardest so one day I can stand with her." This is a clever way of tying the classic "I need to get stronger" motivation that all shonen protagonists have to the main romance, and a significantly less tired way of using it than "so I can save my blah / protect my blah / defeat blah." I kind of like having a girl of the same age as the protagonist placed on the pedestal of hero to strive towards, instead of some middle-aged man. Then we have the rescue of Haruhime, which, yes, is much more of a save the helpless damsel in distress, but A, Haruhime actually saves Belle first, getting him out of the prison, and does help him fight Firene. And B, she's a prostitute, at least as far as they know, instead of a pure virgin. This second point deserves some emphasis. I cannot say how much I appreciate them very directly confronting the whole purity equals value thing present in so many works. On a side tangent, Aisha, who was actually a prostitute, also gets a fair amount of development, and for the anime-only viewers watching, I should mention that she continues to be an important character in the story beyond the Ishtar arc, so this story isn't just paying this idea lip service. All that aside, let me be frank, I just like seeing someone strive their hardest against impossible odds to rescue someone. It's fun to indulge in the heroic fantasy, and this is a classic story beat for a reason. I've always found the quest to save one person infinitely more relatable and personal than a quest to save the world, or some other noble cause, and DanMachi dives fully into this fantasy. Oh, also, if you're into that type of thing, you should definitely be hyped for Season 3. Lastly, on to DanMachi's use of mythology and world building. While admittedly the one-to-one conversion of gods and goddesses in DanMachi is about as accurate as that of the Marvel Universe, which is to say, not very, the way gods and goddesses interact with mortals and each other is very much true to the mythology of pantheistic religions. The gods of DanMachi are capricious, petty, scheming, and in search of entertainment. They are certainly not pillars of perfection, and while they are neither heroes nor villains, they pull all the strings in the background and drive the story forward. These powerful beings with very human failings make for very interesting characters. DanMachi even hasn't shied away from the Greek tradition of having gods seduce mortals, although they did cut out the bestiality, which is probably a good thing. The worlds these gods are placed into then is also very well developed. The nature of the dungeon and the monsters that lie therein is a mystery that gradually develops as the story unfolds, drawing the reader in. At the same time, DanMachi gradually reveals the world around Aurario, giving the reader a history and context to set all the events against. This is done gradually in a controlled manner, so it never feels like the story's pace is being slowed down with an info dump, while continuing to make it all the richer. Ultimately, I'm happy to see a fantasy that draws as much from various world mythologies as it does from Tolkien, and has no mention of other worlds. In conclusion, DanMachi is great, not because it is highly original. It really isn't. But because it executes so well on the ideas it steals. From action shonen, from fantasy, and from mythology, it takes the cream of the crop and leaves the chaff. DanMachi instills the greatness from a long history of triumphs and presents it in one condensed story. As such, its ratings on Mal are a travesty that must be corrected. And well, hey, maybe consider watching it. As for reading it, that is an absolute must. The light novels are better than the anime, by the way. Anyways, that concludes this video. Thank you for listening. Cheers!